Okay, I need you to do something for me. Just look around your room right now. Look at your family, your friends. Now I want you to imagine a dark shadow falling over absolutely everything you know and love. Welcome to this explainer. I'm your host, but today I'm actually speaking to you as a citizen of Florence in the year 1348, and I'm welcoming you to the grim, agonizing end of our beautiful city. Our streets are completely empty. The air literally smells of sweet herbs mixed with rotting flesh, and the only sound you can hear is the constant ringing of passing bells. Just let this quote sink in for a second. Fathers and mothers abandoned their own children unattended to their fate as if they were strangers. I mean, think about that. Would you abandon your own child? If they were shivering, crying out your name, dying right in front of you, would you literally lock the door and walk away to save yourself? It's so easy to say no right now, right? But in Florence, we did. We ran. We abandoned our own blood. We left our babies to die alone in the dark. Because that is what absolute, unimaginable terror does to a human soul. Section 1, The Shadow over Florence. I'm opening up my journal to the early days here. You see, Florence was a jewel of the world, a booming, democratic center of culture, art, finance. We walked the exact same streets as Dante. We admired the works of Giotto. We were cultured, we were proud, and we were entirely unprepared for what was coming. We'd heard the rumors, sure, whispers of this unholy pestilence from the east, devastating the Mongol armies laying siege to Kaffa. We heard the Khan catapulted infected corpses over the city walls, but we thought it was just a tragedy an ocean away. We were so horribly wrong. Okay, let's dive into this map. You are watching our doom creep closer, literally mile by mile. In October of 1347, 12 Genoese trading galleys drifted into the harbor of Messina, Sicily. The sailors aboard were either already dead or dying, carrying a disease so insanely virulent that the locals ordered them straight out of the harbor. But it was too late. The sickness had already stepped onto Italian soil. From Messina, terrified refugees fled inland, taking this unseen killer right along with them. And so began this unstoppable march right up the continent. January 1348, Venice falls. By March, the pestilence strikes Pisa. That's just 40 miles from our gates. We tracked its progress with this mounting, paralyzing hysteria. We could literally trace the plague's footprint moving up the coast. With every passing week, another city just went dark. When the spring of 1348 finally bloomed in Florence, the shadow was at our doorstep. We knew our time had run out. Section 2. Symptoms of the pestilence. Let me tell you how this thing actually takes you. Because once it does, all the medical knowledge in the world, every doctor, every potion, every bloodletting is utterly useless. It's a clinical, horrific breakdown of the human body, and I honestly still shiver just recalling how absolutely futile it all was. It moves with this brutal, rapid efficiency. First step, a sudden, violent shivering and fever. You become so weak you literally cannot stand upright. Next, the true horror reveals itself. We call them gavoccioli. These buboes or swellings in the groin or under the armpits. They start out the size of a hazelnut, but then they quickly grow to the size of an apple or a goose's egg. They are exceedingly painful. Then come God's tokens, these black or livid spots scattering across your arms and thighs. Internal bleeding starts. And within 3 days, sometimes even sooner, you're dead. This infected the whole body, so that the patient violently vomited blood, there being no means of curing it. Michael of Piazza, a Franciscan friar in Sicily, wrote those exact words. It was, for all intents and purposes, a liquefying death, and the contagion was so insanely aggressive that simply speaking to the sick was a death sentence. Touching their clothes or anything they used guaranteed you got it. Even the cats, the dogs, the pigs that wandered into infected houses, they just dropped dead right alongside their masters. Section 3. A city fractured. With no cure and zero hope, the very fabric of our society violently tore apart. Florence fractured completely. The sheer terror of this contagion destroyed all human bonds, replacing love and duty with this desperate animal instinct just to survive. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how we coped with the psychological trauma. Our brilliant writer Boccaccio actually observed 2 extreme reactions among my neighbors. On one side, you had the isolationists. They locked themselves away in plague-free homes, ate really delicate foods, drank fine wine in strict moderation, and played music, basically refusing to listen to the screams happening right outside.
On the other side, the hedonists. They figured doom was inevitable anyway, so they just abandoned their properties, drank heavily day and night, hopped from empty tavern to empty tavern, and literally laughed in the face of death. But honestly, whether you hid or you drank, the end was exactly the same. The stench of rotting corpses filled the air everywhere. Grand palaces were left completely open, filled with gold, jewels, and luxury, but no thief even dared to enter, because the wealth was tainted with death. The only people braving these homes were the gavoti, rough countrymen and servants we hired at incredibly high wages. They would hastily drag the dead out like dogs, just tossing them into these massive, overflowing trenches because the consecrated churchyards were already completely full. Section 4. Desperate Measures and Cures. Look, we were desperate. We fully believed this was the wrath of God, a divine punishment for our wicked deeds. And when logic completely fails, panic breeds superstition. We tried absolutely everything to stop the invisible miasma, that corrupted air we thought was poisoning us. We held endless public processions, weeping and begging the heavens. We walked the streets, literally clutching flowers, spices, and sweet-smelling herbs directly to our noses, desperately trying to ward off the putrid air. We washed our hands and faces in vinegar and rosewater. None of it worked. Actually, the only defense that eventually showed any real promise was born far away from here, in the port city of Ragusa. They forced arriving ships to isolate for 30 and later 40 days, a quarantine. It was our only true shield. But before that kind of logic prevailed, our faith just broke down into pure madness. Bands of men known as flagellants roamed the countryside, whipping their own flesh bloody to appease a furious god. And far, far worse, terrified mobs sought a scapegoat. Across Europe, innocent, marginalized groups were falsely accused of poisoning the water wells. Whether justly or unjustly, as some of the chronicles naively questioned, the horrifying truth is that countless innocent people were dragged from their homes and burned alive. Panic literally erased our humanity. Section 5. A new world emerges. By the winter, the screams finally began to fade. Not because our medicine worked, but simply because the fire had run out of fuel. I want you to slow down for a second. Just picture the eerie, absolute silence that settled over our completely broken continent. And this brilliantly illustrates the macro scale of our tragedy. The pestilence enveloped the entirety of Europe. Travelers who actually dared to walk the roads reported seeing literal ghost towns. Entire villages laid waste. Fields were completely overgrown, and cattle were just wandering aimlessly into the wilderness without any herdsmen left to be hunted by wolves coming down from the mountains.
100,000. Between March and July of 1348, it is estimated that 100,000 human beings lost their lives just within the walls of Florence alone. To put that into perspective, across Europe, that number swelled to 30, maybe even 50 million souls. 1/3 to 1/2 of everyone alive. Just gone.
Yet, crazily enough, from the ashes of this apocalypse, a completely new world was violently forged. A paradoxical silver lining emerged for those of us who survived. See, before the plague, lords held all the power, populations were massive, and peasant labor was cheap. But the Great Mortality created huge labor shortages. Suddenly, the commoners who survived held all the cards. They demanded higher wages, and when lords tried to freeze their pay, peasant rebellions exploded. The strict, ancient feudal hierarchy was fatally fractured, paving the way for the Renaissance and the modern economic world as we know it. So the absolutely crucial point is this: we survived, but it cost us our entire old world. I'm going to leave you today, stepping back into your own time, with this dark thought. We thought we were advanced. We thought our society was unshakable. But we learned that when true existential terror strikes, the veneer of civilization is agonizingly thin. If the pestilence returned tomorrow, in your world, with all your modern wonders, would your society hold together? Or would you too lock the door and abandon each other? Thank you for joining me on this explainer. Until next time, stay curious and stay safe.